This is a podcast by the News Minute, and you are listening to South Central.
Hello and welcome to South Central, a TNM podcast where we put the South at the center. I'm Dhanya Rajendran, your weekly host, and joining me in the studio is my co-host, Pooja Prasanna.
Hello.
Reporting head of the News Minute.
Hi, Dhanya.
Hi, Pooja. So, Tamil Nadu elections done and dusted. Vijay is firmly in the Chief Minister's seat.
Comfortably so. Now, who's going to sit in the Kerala CM seat?
I think by the time this episode airs, we should be having a reply to that.
I like your confidence. I don't know where it comes from, this optimism.
I think now it will come. It has to come. There's no other way out. So anyways, before I go to the headlines, couple of things. So I got this email recently from somebody who runs a list called FeedSpot. And apparently South Central is now on top Indian podcast on FeedSpot. Say yay for us.
Absolutely.
But then when I looked at the list, I realized that we make it to that list if more people put reviews for us on Spotify and Apple. So you know what I'm going to ask you? Don't be a YouTuber only. Or YouTube, what is it?
No, we're YouTuber.
Yeah. Don't be a YouTube consumer
Viewer
only. Go to Spotify, go to Apple, etc. and leave a review. Remember, we are a podcast that comes every Friday and we tell you what the important headlines are in South India and we do deep dives into 2 topics. And we also started a South Central Fund last week. The link is in the comments. So if you like the show, if you would want us to do bigger, better things, of course, even make our studio better, then you can contribute to South Central because without you, our work simply does not exist. To the headlines, Pooja.
We start with Andhra for a change. Andhra Chief Minister orders 50% cut in his convoy vehicles to save fuel. CM Chandrababu Naidu has directed a 50% reduction in the number of vehicles during district tours as part of fuel conservation measures suggested by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. On cue, now all ministers suddenly realize that the convoy takes up a lot of fuel, but such superficial performative conservation this is. Sri Shailam temple revenue up to 217 crores. Annam Reddy credits CM Naidu's tourism push. Endowments Minister Annam Reddy has attributed a sharp rise in temple revenue and pilgrim footfall in Andhra over the last 2 years to the keen interest of Chief Minister Naidu in temple tourism. Moving on to Karnataka. The state withdraws 2022 hijab ban, allows limited traditional symbols in classrooms. This is up to class 12. Those who followed the News Minute will remember that when there was a row on the grounds, on the field in 2022, we were all on the ground reporting from how it's impacting people's lives, especially young Muslim women, how many of them even had to negotiate the terms of being allowed to go to schools and colleges. There is a thread of all our work. Do go and check it out.
No, but I want to say that, this government order, which everybody had been asking for since the Siddaramaiah government
And
came
it was
into
promised, by the way.
Yeah, it was in their manifesto. They did not deliver on it for almost 3 years now. Now, when the order has come, they're being very careful. They've said that there are many religious symbols which will be allowed in classrooms now. That involves the Janivara, the sacred thread, the hijab, the scarf, the pita, etc.
So I don't think there was ever a ban on Janivara because that is something you wear inside. Now my interest is a scarf, right? How will that turn around and will now students again come with saffron scarves is the point.
Yeah.
A Karnataka leader of opposition, R. Ashoka, to reduce escort vehicles travel by Namma Metro. Responding to a call by Prime Minister Modi to follow austerity measures, leader of opposition, R. Ashoka, announced that he and his family would abide by austerity measures. My only concern is, will his security also travel with him in Namma Metro? Because they won't be allowed to carry any weapons. And I hope that they don't go and create more nuisance in Namma Metro. Moving on to Telangana, Cyberabad police dispatched teams to Delhi and Karimnagar in hunt for Bandi Sanjay's son in the POCSO case. Cyberabad police have dispatched multiple teams to Delhi and Karimnagar. And this is with regard to a case against Bandi Sai Bhagirat, son of Union Minister of State for Home Affairs Bandi Sanjay Kumar. And there have been protests asking for his arrest. And he has been absconding for the last 5 days.
So Pooja has a let me explain on it. It is divided into 2 segments. One is this very strange honey trap case which Sai Bhagirath Bandi, whatever, filed against the girl's family hours before their complaint was registered by the police. And second, of course, Pooja, we looked at the slut shaming that a section of Telugu influencers are doing online, which is just not done. And let me also remind that Bundy's Sanjay's son was first accused of sexual harassment. Now the charges have been trumped up. He is booked under rape, aggravated sexual assault, and still he has not been arrested.
And it is unbelievable that his father says, if my son has done something wrong, let action be taken. While the son is absconding.
Yeah.
He's the Union Minister for Home Affairs, MOS, still. Another headline from Telangana, Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Sunday exuded confidence that the BJP will form the next government in Telangana with a huge majority.
They said that in Kerala and Tamil Nadu also, and got 3 seats and 1 seat. Of course, let's not laugh at it. It may happen at some point of time. And Telangana seems closer than any of the other states, excluding Karnataka, of course. Yeah.
Let's move on to Tamil Nadu. Vijay's TVK government comfortably sailed through the floor test on Wednesday, that's May the 13th, with a faction of the AIDMK also that's led by C.V. Shanmugam, extending their support to the newly formed government. He already had 120, that's the number that he had, including himself and the speaker and everyone. Now he has the support of a big faction of AIDMK legislators, which means that there is a bit of cushioning even if the left parties or VCK want to pull out sometime in the future. Another headline from Tamil Nadu, Vijay government orders closure of 717 TASMAC outlets near temples, schools and bus stands. For those who are not familiar, TASMAC is the state-run liquor store, and he's ordered for it to be closed around schools and bus stands. I don't know why bus stands though. Though it's a welcome move, I must add.
No, so previous governments have closed, but under a lot of pressure. I think Jayalalitha announced 500, Edapadi announced 500, M.K. Stalin announced 500, but all that came in the middle of their terms. Vijay has done it on the first day. But, prohibition is a very tricky route to go. They have to figure out, closing your temples, schools, etc., I think that's a given.
Yeah,
that
School
should
is
be
fine.
done.
I didn't understand bus stand, but I think prohibition is also maybe phased perhaps could work. We've seen in so many states that it doesn't work. And
no, it has to go hand in hand. Even phased has to go hand in hand with a lot of things, right? Like de-addiction centers, counseling, helping people. Everything has to go together. Otherwise, it can just collapse.
And the political will to crack down on the black market. I think that's the biggest
And
problem.
let's not forget that most politicians themselves own distilleries, which is the reason why that it has only burgeoned and never really come down, because these are TASMAC outlets. There are also TASMAC bars.
Kerala CPM leadership rules out anti-incumbency, flags organizational lapses behind Kerala poll defeat. The state committee meeting saw criticism being aired against the leadership, specifically against its failure to address inner party issues. They've also said something to the effect of left parties didn't have cohesion or something like
that. And
I
think the Bengal unit has solely blamed Pinarayi Vijayan, saying that it is because of his stand or the positions that he took that Kerala, that the left has seen such a loss that there is no left government left in the country itself.
I don't think the Bengal unit should really be commenting.
But Bengal unit also pointed out at what we have also been saying about Pinarayi's Bonhomie with Vellapalli Nadeshan, and that has spooked the Muslim voters.
Also, good time to replug my last week's Let Me Explain, where we looked at the details of why the LDF lost. This is a headline I don't know how to read. Should we read it? Because by the time we are recording, which is at 11 o'clock on Thursday, UDF is set to decide today, after a quick 10-day talks, will Kerala Chief Minister announcement be delayed? I don't know if we can stick to anything, because every day we hear today it'll happen, today it'll happen. Dhanya is very optimistic that it will happen today.
They are going to announce it today. There's no doubt about it. My only thing is the CLP is going to be informed who the choice is. Now, if the choice is not agreeable to the CLP, then what happens, I don't know. But the point is, anybody you ask in Delhi, truthfully what they will tell you is that the choice boils down to Rahul Gandhi taking all the inputs that he has and then finally deciding whether he wants K.C. Venugopal in Delhi or not. It's like Pooja and I. So, I talk to Pooja 25 times a day. So, I must decide whether...
You can live without talking to me that many times a day.
Exactly. Because Pooja will have another job, right? So, that is a decision which Rahul Gandhi has to take. It's not a very easy one. I wouldn't want to be in issues.
I just realized you just compared me to K.C. Venugopal. I must place on record. I'm very offended.
I mean, okay, but I think that it's very difficult to be in Rahul Gandhi's shoes at this moment. You know, there's public sentiment. You know that your MLAs also are here and there. Some of them for VD, some of them for KC. And whatever you do, especially if you choose KC, you're in for a long haul of protest also.
No, I don't think he's in a difficult position at all. I think it's a very easy decision. You work
Okay,
whoever works.
as we are doing this,
You've
I've
gotten
got a
breaking
message
news?
that it is going to be VD only. So let us see if it comes true. I mean, I just got a message from someone in the Congress. So let's see if while this episode goes, it's correct or not. Okay.
But yeah, it will be tricky. But Dhanya, last point on this. Many years ago, I'd written about how we talk about federalism in different forms, but this high command culture is one of the biggest problems for federalism. The elections are fought on the merit of the local leaders. If things go wrong, the local leaders are blamed. But when it comes to any kind of big decision, it is the high command that calls the shots. So that's a big problem. That's it for this week.
Okay, that's it with the headlines. Okay, so we're going to first look at the NEET exam paper leak, and joining us is Maheshwer Peri, educationist and founder and chairman of Careers 360. Thank you, Mr. Peri, for joining us here at the News Minute South Central.
Thank you so much.
So I was watching your interview, I think on NDTV, with where you put questions to the NTA, the chief of NTA, the National Testing Agency. I thought that he did not have any answers to most of your questions, but that is not surprising considering the position he's in. I was actually pleasantly taken back that he was coming on TV channels to, answer questions that day, because normally people would just not turn up. Okay, also joining us is late Latif Nandini Chandrashekar of the News Minute. Nandini, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Dhanya.
So I want to ask Mr. Peri, this is not the first time that we are seeing a leak, right? Even the NEET papers, we have seen rumors of leak, then a leak, and 2024 there was a report also.
Actually, are impacting about 2.5 million students who would take the examination, and the cycle it starts, because you're also dealing with academic year, mind you, because a lot of people who want to go out, from India, about 25-30,000 students also go out to study allied sciences and all. They don't have a scorecard in their hand because NEET is compulsory for them also to join the place. So that is where the problem is. See, the exam re-NEET would be conducted. There is no other option for them. They will have to conduct the examination all over again, and they'll do that also. And it will be done within the month of June. They'll also try to process it faster so that they can move forward faster. All those things will happen. But the worry and the scare is that this will repeat itself again all over again, unless we plug the issues that come in. Because in 24, even today in 24, there was a big scandal that happened, and you actually had a lot of toppers from specific centers where people got 720 on 720. About 7 of them got from one single center, right? But the conversation at that point in time was it is only the grace marks that was an issue. It was not a re-NEET that is not essentially needed. Though at that point in time also, people like us felt that there was a genuine case that the integrity of the exam was compromised. But because we were in the month of July then, because the scam broke out when the results came, then now the scam broke out the moment the exam happened. So that's a big difference. We are dealing with about 30 days kind of a gap that we had. So at this point in time, they've taken a decision to cancel NEET. But if you had actually worked on what happened in 24, the kind of issues that came up in 24 beyond the structural issues, they released that Radhakrishnan report which talks of how it must be conducted and those kind of things. They did not release the other part of the report which talks of an investigation into what exactly happened and what went wrong and what are the issues that came up in terms of the integrity of the issue of the examination. That part of it none of us is privy to. That part of it is none of us have read through the whole thing. All that was given to us was a press release of the Radhakrishnan committee report, which talks of the structural or systemic flaws of how you must conduct and those kind of things, which are very policy centric, mind you, of whether we should do it as computer based test and those kind of things. There are larger issues that we're dealing with. But the integrity issues of the examination, none of us saw the report. And had anyone looked at the report and read the report, which is what I was speaking to the NTA director saying, have you read the report of 2024? And he said, I've read that, and he talked of the other policy issues that we're talking about. I'm talking about the investigation that happened of what went wrong with NEET examination. And that report, none of us have seen it. Has anyone read about it? Then this wouldn't have repeated itself all over again.
Just to add to what Dhanya said at the beginning about why the NTA chairperson is even appearing, I think that is honestly distraction tactics, because if you find a punch bag on television, then the attention won't go to the government. So it's easier for one of these people to take the flag. But Mr. Peri, my question is a little larger as well. 2024, I remember all of us spoke about why NEET has defeated its purpose. This is when they'd given grace marks, and that had become a huge controversy. I come back to the same question. In 2016, when NEET was introduced, despite all the protests, the reason was that this will ensure transparency and less corruption. We've seen time and again multiple ways that it's not true. We can argue whether it's reduced corruption or not. Do you think it's time for NEET to go? It has no purpose other than complicating lives of millions of students.
So, two parts to the whole thing, and when in 2016 it happened, I was one of the people who supported it because I believed that it will bring in some transparency. But at this point in time, I'm very disenchanted with the way the conduct of the examination happens, and also the way it actually takes away the power of a lot of students who are only studying in schools and don't go through coaching institutions. One of the data point that we worked on in 2024, in 2024, one of the things that happened was there was a gold mine of data that came back because of the Supreme Court order, which said release all data and let people critically evaluate that. So when we evaluated that, about 23.3 lakh students actually took the examination that time around. In 566 towns, villages, cities, and those kind of things, 4,750 centers. Now, this 566, we tried to map it against the top 25 coaching institutions, but they actually had some physical presence in these 566 cities and towns. 225 had them, and 331 did not have a single coaching institution. The 331 towns, villages, and cities, not cities, I'm sure cities would have a coaching institution, had an 11% success rate, and the 225 had an 89% success rate. And the reason this is important is it simply means that whatever you study in your school class and be the topper of your particular class, if you don't go for coaching, your chances of success in the examination is very little. Now, how do you balance schooling system where there is some kind of a credibility for the schooling system and also the entrance examination, because it normalizes certain kind of scores, right? The only way you do that is to actually give some kind of a weightage to school. For example, if I'm a student in Delhi, I can be the state topper, but I would not get a seat for undergrad program in any of Delhi schools, because the only way you can get into undergrad program is through a CUET examination. When you have that, then what happens? I can be a state topper from a government school who can't afford coaching, and I'm working very, very hard and learning exactly what's being taught to me as a syllabus that is decided by the government, as an assessment decided by the government, as a testing that is decided by the government, and as a scorecard that is also given by the government. But it is worth zilch. And that is the problem. The problem is that we are putting and all these coaching companies also say, "Bete, these are 3 hours of most important 3 hours of your life." How can we make 3 hours to be the most important 3 hours of your life? Right? Whereas the schooling system tests you or at a quarterly level, at a unit test level, at a half year level, at a semi-final level, at a pre-final level, and a final level, and then it gives you a CGPA. That is not valued. But the 3 years of test is getting valued. If you want to create some kind of a benchmark, then what you'll realize is you say that, okay, student has to also get a good score in school to be here and vice versa. You'll suddenly see a lot of students also moving towards at least focusing on school education also. Otherwise, we're killing school education in pursuit of trying to create a transparent model. And most importantly, Pooja, any entrance examination is driven by an important society which tries to value in 99 being better than 98 is something that we all know, right? 99 is bigger than 98. And that is what we're trying to do, because we do not have a measure of measuring fairness, equity, and justice. So what we do is we take the cover of transparency and say this is the most transparent way of dealing with it. My driver's daughter getting 80% is much better than my son getting 99%. That's a fact, because she's sitting there in Monday with no coaching access and she's getting 80%. How do you measure the two? The way you measure the two is when you tell the daughter that you study in the government school, you get the marks and you'll get some weightage of that marks. At least she will not score in the coaching part of it, but she'll score more in the school. Right? And similarly, my son might not score well in the schooling system because he's focused on coaching. He'll score more in the coaching, but might not score. And then there is some kind of a balance. Now, what is the balance? What is the weightage is for the nation to decide. But for us to demonetize school education completely and say anything that you want to do further after class 12th, whatever you studied till class 12th is nothing, it's worth zilch, and you move on to the next level is a trauma and tragedy for a lot of students.
So a lot of teenagers I know, they don't attend school anymore. They have these 3-hour, 4-hour sessions. In Bangalore, for example, there are centers which have separate buildings for CBSE schools, state schools. So the children from that school come there, they attend classes in the coaching center. A few hours, the school teachers will come to the center. Or it's the other way around, the center has classes within the school. But since we spoke so much about coaching centers and this whole examination system really working towards rewarding students who have the money, the time, etc., to go for coaching also, I think one part we should look at is that in every examination leak, or at least in most of it, we are also hearing a role that is played by examination centers, including the NEET leak this time, where if you read news stories, and I feel that the news coverage has been quite pathetic. We have, of course, not done anything about it, but even those who have education correspondence, it's more like explainers or what the crime is, right? But in all that, there is a hint that coaching centers were also involved. Nandini, you have looked through a lot of previous reporting also. Is this dubious role of coaching centers in also leaking papers very evident now?
Yes, there is a lot of pressure on the coaching centers as well to bring results. If you look at, months of February, March and April, newspapers are dominated by jacket ads, the front page, full page ads saying that, this center has so much percentage of students clearing. It is a whole thing of obviously they are, inviting parents to get their kids to that. And I have been through it. I have been to these coaching centers and it's mercenary the way they deal with it. Just to quote an example, when we first spoke to the one leading coaching center in the country too, I guess the first question they asked was, "Do you have money?" And we're like, "Okay, where is this going?" And they're like, "If you have money for a management seat, don't even bother." That's the first thing they tell you. Don't waste your time here. If you have that money where you can buy a management seat for your kid, don't put your kid through the trauma of admitting them to a coaching center. This is what they are saying. Okay, and we said, okay, no, we can't afford a management seat right now, so we'd rather. And this is something we were just going along because this was a decision of my child to go for it. So it's not like we were pressuring him to do it. Now, once you get into the system, once you admit a child, now they also have a segregation inside the coaching center in the way, they'll give you a spate of tests, look at assess your performance. And then, the top 15% will have a specific, a different set of instructors, more attention. So there is all this. So ultimately, they're spending a lot of money, a lot of attention to see that they get results. And, if 100 students are enrolled in a course, like I said, like 8 to 10 students might get admission from a center. So how do you accommodate, the rest of them who have paid the money, who you want to show are doing something? So yes, there is a lot of pressure. There is a lot of pressure on coaching centers to produce results. And some of them, unfortunately, go this way. And this is not the first time, right? Even in 2024, the role of coaching centers was suspected. The nature of the exam, the time the exam is scheduled, it's crazy. It's crazy. So yes, coaching centers, there are a lot of issues and there are a lot of unethical means that they resort to get results.
Mr. Peri, I want to ask you, we spoke about the integrity of the exam itself, right? But, these papers go through various hands while ultimately before reaching the center. Is there really a solution? Can we plug this leak at all? Like every time we speak about it, I was seeing a graphic put out by the Congress that I don't know how true it is, but there were 89 leaks they are saying in the past 10 years, which they have counted across states and in national exams. Now, if that is the case, we are talking about a large industry, right? In the sense that the papers have to go through various layers. Is there really a way of plugging things, or are we just talking in the air and this problem will keep continuing?
No, there is definitely a way. If you look at JEE and ignore for a moment the computer-based testing that we're talking about, there are about 20 sessions of papers. 20 sessions, Jan session and then April session. Each of them will have about 4-5 days. Each session will have about 2 lakh students taking the examination, or 1.5 lakh students taking the examination. So every student is getting a different paper. But within a session, everyone is getting the same paper. So when you do it that way and you start normalizing based on a percentile score, you basically localize a problem, assuming there's a leak that happens also. Like, let's assume for a moment that this particular leak happened in Haryana or Nashik or Sikhar or whatever. You localize the problem there. And two, you don't know whether that paper will come to you or not. That's a different thing, because there are 10 sets of papers, mind you. In this particular case, we have not localized the problem. We have not zeroed in on how do we, decentralize to an extent that there is a lot of de-risking that happens in the process. And people who are paying for that also now would not want to pay, because it is one of the 10 papers. Whether it will come or not, you don't know still, right? So how do you deal with it? You need to basically decentralize, de-risk, and localize the problem. Otherwise, when one paper leaking in one part of the country affects 23-24 lakh students, it's a massive thing. And mind you, NEET is the biggest examination that we have in the country as far as entrance exams is concerned. And the reason why NEET is extremely important is the cost of public education is about 5 lakh rupees. The cost of private education is about 1.5 crore rupees. So there is a huge financial incentive for you to actually flex your money power to get that seat, because the difference is 1.5 crore, and parent is willing to, two parents, it seems, paid 30 lakh rupees. They paid because they know that if your child scrapes through, they're going to save a crore of rupees per child. So there is a financial incentive for the parent also in this entire process. And that's why they buy it. They don't mind paying 5 lakh, 10 lakh, 20 lakh. The same thing doesn't happen for engineering, mind you. Right? The reason why in NEET it happens is the gap between what you have as public education system, where it is about 5 lakh rupees over 5 years, versus private education, which is about 1.5 crore rupees over 5 years. That creates this, gap of about 1.4 crore rupees, which is what every parent can play with if they're assured of a particular outcome.
But why has NEET not tried to move to a system like JEE? I don't understand.
See, I would not personally, if you ask me, I would not want a complete CBT thing. I think we need to gradually take it up to say in cities you'll only be CBT, and in villages it will be pen and paper kind of a thing. The reason is, if you were to take it completely CBT, computer-based testing, in my opinion, about 4-5 lakh students will fall apart. They will not take the examination because they study in schools where there is no computer. How would they even use a computer for that matter? So we should be slightly conscious and have a greater empathy when we talk of computer-based testing, because I know that a lot of people sitting in cities saying, no, computer is important, computer. I agree, I understand. But go to a remote corner village in the country, the school will not have a computer. And so for you to expect a class 12 student to use a computer to respond to a test would be very, very far. So the way you deal with it is over 5 years, you start slowly but steadily saying, listen, in cities, we'll only have computer-based testing. In towns, we'll have at least half of them being CBT and half being pen and paper. And villages will only have. So there's a way that we need to make this evolve. It cannot be just imposed overnight from the top.
No, I don't think there is anything democratic about NEET, even if in its present form. There are so many biases, and they are largely, as we've read reports after reports, which say that it is biased, against people coming from rural areas, people coming from even semi-rural areas, even in urban cities. You have to go to coaching. There are a very specific parameter, that it applies where people do well.
Within this also, there is another data point which we worked when we looked at people who got into IITs, NLUs and all. All centralized examinations are biased against state boards, right? So a student studying on a state board is very disadvantaged as compared to someone who's studying CBSE. Now, state boards are government schools, mind you. If you look at the state board, about 85% of schools are government schools. If you take CBSE, about 85% are private schools. If you remove the Kendriya Vidyalayas and Jawahar Navodaya Vidyalaya, everything is a private school. Today, if someone wants to set up a private school, they will go through the CBSE board and come in, because that is the entrance parameter, because that's NTSE, NCRT, CBSE, and that's the pathway that you're dealing with. And it is NCRT syllabus that comes for the central examinations. So they will not talk of Chola in the question paper. And we in South would be teaching students about Cholas. And that is how the entire process works. The process is biased. So when you looked at data, in the year, the last data that came out is before NTA came in. By the way, since NTA came in, the transparency has gone to dogs. Right. Now, the 2018, the report came in from IIT Kanpur, where they actually talked of how many students joined IITs and which board they belong to. 11% CBSE schools laid claim to 58% IIT seats. 85% state board schools laid claim to about 40% IIT seats, 36-37%, and baki CBS, CSE, ICSE and all those kind of things, right? So now when you have 11% laying claim to 58% seats, and all because they are coming from particular board, then why are the states not fighting for the rights of their own children who are going through state boards that they have set up? Or why are they not changing the syllabus to be cohesive with what is the entrance examination pattern? Do this or do that.
That's what my next question was. Do you think some level of decentralization could help bring in more transparency or at least reduce the trauma? Because like you said, if there is a leak, let's say in Haryana or Maharashtra or even in some southern part, it would impact all of the 2.3 million students, plus, of course, their families. There is an entire ecosystem around it, right? It's going to impact millions of people. So some level of decentralization, do you think, will reduce the trauma?
But hasn't the opposite been happening? We have been centralizing all exams and not decentralizing at all.
Exactly.
Right?
That's the problem.
See, I think the need is decentralization. What is happening is only centralization. Like CUT, for example, as an examination doesn't have a right to exist.
True, I agree.
But it came. Because what it says is, you want to study anything further, you need to go through an entrance examination. There were some, courses that we could still do without an entrance examination. CUT plugged that. For what? So that someone can create another territory for themselves to conduct an examination.
I strongly believe in decentralization. Otherwise, it is going to be very difficult going forward. There are still no limits on the number of attempts that a student can take. There is no age limit. There is no upper age limit. Even with being generous, there has to be some limit. Otherwise, this doesn't explain, right? Year on year, there is a 2 lakh increase in the number of candidates taking up the exam. And the psychological toll is crazy. The youngest is 18. You just turn 18, you're taking this exam. And like Mr. Maheshwer mentioned, it is that 3 hours, and the 3 hour you have to answer those 180 questions. You have to peak in that 3 hours. If you're having a bad day, if it just doesn't go, there are so many elements that could change and make a difference. Does that actually prove whether you're good, doing well in that 3 hours? No, it doesn't say that you're going to make a good doctor.
See, the way you deal with this whole thing is to, first of all, give some kind of a weightage for what happens in schooling education. How much weightage is again a debate. You can start with 30%, go up to 40 and 50 and more. The moment you do that, students will have to sit in the classroom, because this also has a weightage. At this point in time, whatever you studied in classroom is zero. And that is a big problem.
As we're discussing, I'm just thinking all of us are on the same page. We've all been talking about this. There have been reports, committees, all of that. But who's listening?
I want to ask Mr. Peri one thing, which Nandini did. But what is the role of coaching centers that you have seen in the leakage of papers? We have talked about how evil they are, how money-minded they are, etc. But I want to know, in the leakage of papers, I remember a specific example from Kerala where one coaching center wrote to us saying that they believe it's another coaching center which is getting the exam papers in advance itself and giving. And I thought it's just competition between these two people and they were sending us nasty emails. But now I'm inclined to believe that maybe there's a sliver of truth to this. But what is your thought about the role of coaching centers?
So, Dhanya, in a particular town in Rajasthan, which is Sikar, a day before the examination, all students are, shepherded into classrooms. And they are made to take mock tests. This particular thing also happened exactly the same way, where the mock test will have about 400-500 questions. That 400-500 questions will also have an inherent component of what is going to come next day morning, which is about 140 questions this time around, by the way. 140 questions is what was served to these students a day before the examination. And all these were shepherded to the classrooms to take the mock test. Now, this 140 questions has come as a leak but inject it into a larger mock test because they don't want to say, this is the paper that you're going to deal with. Right. And if you answer it wrongly, then the teacher would tell you what's the correct answer, so that next day morning when you walk into the classroom, you actually walk in with 600 marks in your pocket already out of 720. This happened in 2024, where exactly in the same place, Sikar, we knew that some classrooms were opened late in the night for a mock test to be given by the students. And this happened this time in 2026 also. Now, what more collusion can you talk? I can't prove I'm not a police investigative agency, but when you are shepherding students into a classroom a day before the examination and making them take a test where a substantial portion of that, and by the way, students who getting into the classroom also know कि आज हमारा paper मिल जाएगा. They know that, and that's why a lot of students also take the test. Otherwise, now a mock test students don't take. But they know that this particular test would be taken. In fact, last year now I actually did a massive campaign because most of these YouTubers, and I'm talking about the big ones also, including the ones that are listed and not listed and everyone, they used to have a program called Paper Out or Paper Leak, one of these two. And the Paper Out would come at 4 a.m. in the morning, where this man would be standing in front of a screen and 5 lakh, 10 lakh students will be sitting live on the other side. And he will tell you what questions will come. 4 a.m. in the morning, 5 a.m. in the morning. That's the kind of the nature of the beast that we're dealing with. Now, students would go in there because they know that कि मुझे पढ़ना नहीं है. Last minute में, on the day of the examination, 4 a.m. in the morning, I actually sit in front of a thing and some man would be telling me what will come, what will not come. And people will go with that. I'm not saying it's a paper leak, but what they do is this entire thing of paper leak, paper out has been normalized in this country. But essentially, it's a crime. In that normal behavior, you're actually shepherding students to a mock test examination where most of the questions that will come for the examination would also be there. And that is a challenge that we're dealing with.
If I could ask you to break down the anatomy of a leak of this sort, because obviously there are people in NTA involved or it couldn't happen. So can you just spell that out for us?
So there are two ways of dealing with it. One is the physicality of the paper in the case of NEET, because it's printed in a government printing press, then it is transported. So at a government printing press, there are multiple hands that are handling this paper, and anyone can actually have it. And then it's transferred to a bank under security. And that is across 5,500 centers this time around, mind you. So you're actually dealing with, again, that physicality where a paper is being transported in a locked one, right? Now, at the bank, it is deposited in a bank in a safe locker. The only person who can open it is on the day of the examination, the examination center head, the bank manager, a security guard, and one person from the board. 4 of them go there, take that paper, bring it to the center, and then they unseal it. Now, deal with it at 5,500 centers. All it takes is in a small village where it's center, where the bank manager, the policeman, the board person, and the center head know each other, which is quite a possibility in small places, mind you. In which case, by the way, this paper is transported not on the day. It is there sitting in the bank locker for about 3, 5, 7 days. Right. So if the 4 of them get to know each other and they say, let's take it out, it's over. And it is possible. We're talking of 5,500 centers, mind you. And the incentive for leaking the paper is so high that you can deal with anything.
The irony, if I might mention, for the students entering the exam halls, the number of instructions, the things they cannot bring, not bring, where, it has been a matter of some debate over the years. You have to wear half sleeves, you can't wear bangles, you can't wear anything, ring, thread. But this is not where the problem is. Even the slippers, right? You're supposed to wear open Hawaii slippers. But it's very clear this is not where the problem is.
In some states and all, Nandini, girls are harassed.
Yeah.
Because they have hooks.
Yeah.
They have metal hooks. They are harassed.
So, yeah, clearly the problem is somewhere else.
No, so I think ending the discussion, I feel that the whole problem we have figured out that, NTA and a lot of these examinations, leaks happen, but there is nobody punished. There is no solution to how to make it better. Like Mr. Peri was saying, JEE obviously has a better formula, but that can't be replicated for everyone else. But we can't forget the role of coaching centers. While it is making examinations and results itself inequitable and inaccessible for a lot of people, On the other hand, they do have a hand in leaking papers. So we have created an economy of these coaching centers, which not only dominate how students write exam, perceive exams, but also examination results. And I just want to remind everybody that in Karnataka, during the police sub-inspector examination leak in 2022, an IPS officer, Amrit Paul, was arrested. And he was kept in jail for more than a year. So when there is political will, also because there was
a lot of protest also.
There was a BJP person involved in it. The Congress wanted to show that this is happening. So there is a lot of, the Congress protested a lot. It happened before elections. So when there is political will, action has been taken also.
I just want to add something here. Even now, one of the guys who's arrested is known to the education minister of Rajasthan. And he's seen with the MLA of Rajasthan. And he's the coaching center head. And he's the one who's been arrested also, by the way, by CBI.
I know. I mean, it's only people with some connections who can do these leaks also, I guess. Thank you very much, Nandini and Mr. Peri. Yeah. Let's hope that the next exam goes without problem. Okay, so now to the austerity measures that the Prime Minister has announced. And following that, a lot of other announcements have come, like import duty for gold has been doubled. Today morning, it's been announced that export of sugar will be banned till the time the ban is revoked. So a lot of piecemeal announcements coming from the government. Now, to make sense of what is happening, joining us is journalist, entrepreneur. He runs India's first data journalism initiative, IndiaSpend. He's also founded Fact Checker and Boom, Govindraj Ethiraj, who also does a podcast every morning where very peacefully he says, "Welcome to the core." Welcome to South Central, Govindraj.
Thank you so much, Dhanya and Pooja, and thank you for having me. I mean, you can call me Govind to start with.
Yes. I have to say one thing on a personal note. So in 2014, when I founded the News Minute, not too many people obviously took us seriously, but it was only Govind who would actually give me some solid advice on what to do. Very patiently, he would tell us, do this, don't do that, do this. So thank you for that too.
And you're welcome. I mean, I'm sure you've done well and succeeded because you've not followed the advice.
That I'm not sure. But, I was listening to your podcast 2 days ago where you said that these austerity measures are 2 months late. Elaborate.
Yeah. So, I mean, the war started on the 28th of February, 2026. Now, soon it'll be 3 months. And we don't know at this point, is this going to be one of those forever wars like Ukraine and Russia, or is it going to reach a conclusive end? From the looks of it today, and in hindsight, it does appear that this is more like a forever war in some form or the other, rather than a war that reaches a conclusive end. When I say conclusive, I mean everything stops. Israel stops, Iran stops, US stops, the United Arab Emirates stops, Saudi Arabia stops. And it is all feasible, but we don't know. And I'm definitely not a geopolitical expert sitting in West Asia. So the point is that we've known now for at least, let's say, 2 months that things are going awry. The price of oil, which is where this whole discussion is centered around, started shooting up immediately after 28th of February and has been above $100 a barrel. Now, most of our imports in the last year of oil, now India imports more than 85 to 90% of its crude oil requirements. And most of our imports have happened, let's say, between $65 and $70 a barrel, at which point a lot of other things make sense. I mean, we are paying higher prices for fuel like petrol and diesel, but obviously the governments, including the state government and the central government, are collecting high shares of taxes. But all of that was fine. But when oil crosses $105 a barrel or $110 a barrel, remember there's another small nuance here, which is that this is not necessarily the price that we are actually buying that barrel of oil. This is what we are seeing on the trading screens. And the price that we are paying for that actual barrel of oil sitting in India is actually higher than that. So it could be somewhere closer to 120 or even more, depending on which transaction it is and from where in the world that oil is coming from. So given all of this, I think we knew or have known for a while that this is going to create a problem. Now, there are two kinds of problems. One is the financial problem, and that I think there's a lot of debate on, should the government be passing on should the government be taxing us at this point when it did not pass on the benefits of lower oil prices, let's say $50 a barrel and so on? And that's a good debate to have, but I think we're in a slightly different situation because oil prices are high not because there is trading arbitrage happening. Oil prices are high because there is a physical shortfall of crude oil because that oil is unable to now pass through the Strait of Hormuz. Secondly, the oil that we are getting, I know that as a country, we've been fairly proficient or efficient in sourcing oil, but we're getting it from all over the place, maybe 45, 50 sources or countries. But it's also traveling much longer, it's taking longer, and therefore it's costing us more. So now we are getting oil at any cost, right? And therefore, if there is such a high cost, it does not make sense for an economy like India to bear that cost without paying a price for it. Now, when I say India now, is it government of India or is it individual taxpayers and citizens like you and me? That's a slightly secondary debate. But the point is that you have to, or rather we have to cut down consumption, if nothing else, to match, let's say, the reduced supply of oil in the world. Now, how do you do that? There could be very many ways of doing it, and many of them will fail as well, right? So you could say, let me go for Soviet-style rationing. Okay, you go to drive up to a petrol pump, you will only get 2 liters if you're in a bike and 5 liters if you're in a car or something like that. Or and to enforce that, you'll say, no, you produce Aadhaar card, ration card, and so on and so forth. And you can already see how that is going to be a disaster. The other thing is to say that, ban all two-wheelers or ban all four-wheelers from plying on the roads. And you can see again what that kind of a problem is. Or you'll say odd even. I mean, there could be multiple ways, but none of them I think will easily work. The only thing that works in my mind is to do or issue what is known as a price signal, which is that you increase prices and demand will moderate. Now, is that the fairest thing to do? Maybe not. But to my mind, and this is economically or simple economics, and this is how it works or has worked elsewhere in the world. If you increase prices, people will reduce consumption, and then we can bring out some balance. Now, I think, as you said, Dhanya, we don't know at this point of time when this is going to end. Is it going to, when I say end, I don't mean the war, I mean prices come down. All indications are that prices will remain high for a while, maybe 3 months, maybe 6 months, maybe a whole year, till supplies stabilize again in West Asia. So we have to be geared for a longer period, and we have to reduce our consumption. Now, how we reduce it and where we reduce it is, I think, is a second round of discussion. But the only way we can bring down consumption, or the only signal that can be used, as in my understanding, to bring down consumption is price.
I take your point of how this isn't a short-term crisis and it's something we have to prepare ourselves in the long haul. But my problem with how the government has dealt with it is, like we discussed, right? This could have been done 2 months ago. Everybody in the government was busy pretending like there's no real crisis, including Amit Shah. I remember an interview he gave to Times Now particularly, where to Navika he was saying, those who are saying there is some sort of a shortage of petrol or even LPG, they're people like Rahul Gandhi, they're just fear-mongers and they're very dangerous. You should go after them, right? I'm saying everything is dictated by the politics of the day and not prudence. And we saw this during COVID too. COVID was announced as a real problem after the government of Madhya Pradesh was formed. And I was reporting here in Bangalore at the time. The MLAs from MP were brought here. Once the government was formed, only then they said, okay, now there is a crisis. So my question is, should it just be always passed on to the people? You are warriors, COVID warriors, you are this war, fancy names to make people feel like they're part of this misery. What could the government have done differently, structurally speaking? Because this wasn't something out of the blue. This has happened and again. Structurally, there are many problems. What could they have done differently?
I think, the government is of the people and by the people. So governments do what they're elected to do, or they think they have been elected to do. So, I know there is politics sort of is the long shadow over all of this. But if we can keep politics aside and focus on let's say the handling of this, I think, to me, it's very clear that one is they should have acted much faster. Okay, you can say I spent 2 or 3 weeks not being sure whether it's going to end suddenly, and therefore And let's be fair, everyone is betting on that. If you ask any business person, and most countries who are trying to figure out their budgets, everyone is finally hoping that, by June the war will end, and then I can plan. If you ask an airline, they'll say that, okay, I'm pricing fares right now, assuming that jet fuel supplies will become normal and prices will come down in the month of by July, August. So everyone is betting on that, and obviously, as you look back now, the bet is wrong. So the first thing I think the government could have clearly done is to say that, we are reducing our, let's say, our expenditure, and here is all the ways that we're doing it now, and without first putting any burden on the people. I think on telling people to do something, and there is a, and I mean, there is a slight, I think there is a slight problem there. It's about how we react when someone says something, right? So the Prime Minister came and said, okay, we are heading into a problem. But actually, this is not the first time he said it. He said it even a month and a half or so ago. And he said there could be COVID-like time. So to his credit, he said it then. Everyone panicked and ran to the petrol pumps. And you remember all the petrol pumps were running out of fuel. But that's not because there was no fuel. That's because everyone was, filling up more than they perhaps needed at that point of time. So what they could have done is clearly to say that, okay, we are reducing our expenditure. Here is my personal, let's say, motorcade or some other travels that I'm reducing. And here are all the ministers in our governments who are doing this. Here are all the other expenditures, including, let's say, advertisements in newspapers. There's that we are reducing. Though reducing advertisements in newspapers is not a link to a forex problem, which is what we are really trying to fight here. Most of our problems that we're talking about are linked to imports of things, whether it's fertilizers or vegetable oil or whatever. But I think when the Prime Minister said that, we are a apprehensive and anxious country. I think when he said that, he says, okay, don't consume vegetable oil, don't or reduce consumption of vegetable oil, reduce consumption of fertilizers, reduce your overseas travel. Do not, go and, get married in India, The normal, because of history and various other things, our intuitive reaction is to panic. That there could be something bigger and worse coming. Now, what that bigger and worse, we don't know. But as I can see, economically, all it means is that there's a price rise coming. Or he said, don't consume gold as well, or reduce your consumption of gold. So I think that's the thing which I hope the government has learned a lesson, including from COVID, that, work on your communication in a way that you're not creating waves of panic, which actually have a worse effect than if you had just increased prices of, let's say, petrol and diesel, or put import duties on gold. So I think that to me is one key lesson, at least on this aspect of the way this has been managed so far. That's the communication of it has to be sharper, clearer, and more definitive, rather than dropping all these hints and broad hints, and then various other people, including members of the financial community, suddenly saying, no, there's a shock coming and you need to be prepared for it. I don't think we have the stomach as a country, because we are getting hit by something or the other all the time, and we don't need more. So just do it and move on.
Yeah, I think the panic, Dhanya, is also because, every other time there has been a crisis, the way we are not given any notice and suddenly left to fend for ourselves.
No, and I think that we have crossed that bridge where we're telling the government, please learn communications, because they clearly haven't learned how to communicate.
And it's just giving tasks, right?
And imagine the Prime Minister did not even announce the austerity measures through any official channel. It was not done through a speech by the Prime Minister, which, by the way, he did 2 weeks ago.
For political reasons.
For political purposes, the Prime Minister came on air, spoke for some 20 minutes about the Women's Reservation Bill, hardly speaking about the bill, but about all the other parties. So when he wants, he has made speeches. But here, the austerity measures is just announced through a campaign speech, and everybody had to get to that. Then, of course, all these graphics which the government put out. But I was also looking at various other columns which are saying that Saudi Arabia, for example, has said that this can go on till 2027, even if the war comes to an end, right? So for a normal person listening to all this, we can keep on discussing whether Modi is right or wrong, etc. But they just want to know, how bad can this get? If the war does not stop for the next 3 or 4 months, let's say, how bad can it get for a normal person?
See, I think it comes back to, I'll sort of speak from the confines of price. I think if we increase prices of petrol and diesel, for one, we've already increased import duties on gold. I don't know what we're going to do about vegetable oils and fertilizers. And these are some of the key heads of things that or international travel, so. I'm sure we can bring all of that down and reduce the burden on our foreign exchange reserves. But that's a forex problem. I mean, our economy is in okay shape, or in fairly decent shape given everything else going into this. So it's not like there is an internal problem. There is an external problem that we are facing because of our dependence on imports to such an extent. That includes everything that we've spoken of, and therefore we need to moderate it now. And obviously there is a problem with our rupee. It's at an all-time low as we speak. Again, we are below 95 rupees to the dollar. So, and this is it's a self-fulfilling thing. So people say, okay, the rupee is looking weak and it's sinking, so I want to sell. And because I'm selling, I'm talking about foreign portfolio investors, for example, the rupee goes down further. So there is, and that requires a different set of solutions and answers. And we don't need to get into that. But I think for the normal person, really, we have to bring down our consumption of fuel, and we have to maybe find ways of spending less on gold, less on travel, and so on. And I don't think the government, at least so far, is not saying that you do this or else. So therefore, it is up to us to do it for our own good, because if nothing else, if I'm traveling overseas today, it's costing me maybe 15-20% more than what it was costing last year, only because the rupee is depreciated, and rupee is depreciated against many other currencies as well. As has been pointed out. So even I was in Malaysia a few months ago, and even the ringgit has appreciated against the rupee. And that was quite surprising to me. Obviously, unless you travel there, you don't track it on a daily basis. On a daily basis, you're only looking at US dollar, maybe British pound and euro and so on. But for various reasons, we've done badly, or not done well against other Asian currencies as well. So we have to cut down. So there is no choice, unfortunately. Is there a better way of selling it? Maybe there is. But unless we cut back on our own consumption, and beginning with fuels, we are only going to prolong our own misery, is really what I would like to say.
But you said that they're not saying that you must do this or else, but can it come down to that where so far, like for example, like we had a lockdown, which was a necessity then. Can it come down to that also, where you're saying you have to work from home? Because now the IT industries, for example, are asking for some sort of a, they're
hybrid model sort of thing.
No, not only that, like Prime Minister can't just appeal to some person's consciousness that please work from home.
These are not guidelines, you need instructions.
Yeah, so do you think it'll come to that?
And that, I think, is the point, right? So the best way, again, if you ask me, and to reiterate, is to increase prices. So suppose, let's say, I was driving from North Bangalore to, let's say, South Bangalore every day, 2 hours or whatever it is, in my own car with just me in the car, and the price of petrol goes up from I don't know what it is in Bangalore, but let's say 103 rupees to 116 rupees or something like that. I might think twice and say, okay, let me find 3 more people, or let me catch a bus, or find a way of doing a train and so on. I know none of these are the best solutions, but I will find a solution, because it's not like I'm being stopped from going, but the pressure is on me now to manage my costs better. Like I said, unfortunately, this is not something that we chose. The war was started by the US and Israel against Iran, purportedly for extracting or removing uranium, or making them, give up their nuclear capabilities. Now, when that is going to be achieved, and whether that was the real objective of the war, I have no idea. But it may well go on, and because of that, we are all suffering. It's not just us. I should have mentioned this earlier. Every country in Asia, or most countries in Asia, have done this 2 months ago. If you look at Indonesia, Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, all of them have done some form of cutback. Their governments have communicated. They've talked about, 4-day weeks. Some of the airlines in Southeast Asia have cut back on flights. Now, of course, even we are cutting back, including Air India. So it is, this is not something that we asked for. This is something that unfortunately has been dumped on us, and we have no choice but to, live with it the best way we can. And it comes back to, paying the price that we really should pay. And when I say price, I mean the literal price, not the figurative price.
My only issue is I understand that this is something that happened to us. Now that it has happened, there isn't much we can do. So we are working with a set of options. But again, we as a country could have, without a crisis of this nature, have moved towards more non-fossil fuel energy. China has done that. Many smaller Southeast Asian countries have done that much better. Today, if you just come and tell me, don't drive, you haven't strengthened your public transport. You haven't given me a viable option. I can't buy an EV car easily without thinking much because you haven't made infrastructure for charging stations. Everybody lives with range anxiety when you drive an EV car. So I'm saying it's always just about responsibilities as citizens, but what is the government doing is a question that they never answer.
And also LPG storage,
Yeah.
right? To increase
the reserves, yeah.
Also, on one of your podcasts, there was a oil expert who said that India cannot increase its import from US, the oil, a lot, because the refineries here are more used to the oil which comes from UAE.
Yeah.
From the Gulf nations,
From
yeah.
the Gulf nations. The refinery process.
Yeah, so there are basically different types of crude. So and Indian refineries are used to processing, because crude all comes from under the sea or under the earth, depending on where it's coming from. But it's of different types, and refineries are, I mean, they're all chemical processes. So chemical processes also, I mean, you can't throw anything inside and expect something to come out on the other side. So they're all geared for a certain kind of crude which comes from a certain, like, and it's the same thing in coal, by the way. You know, coal in India has what they call lower calorific value. Coal that comes from Australia has a higher calorific value. So if you're burning, I mean, there's an example, 10 kilograms of coal here from India, you may be achieving the same, let's say, the same output in terms of energy by burning 6 kilograms of coal from Australia. I mean, this is not an exact number. I'm just saying. So same thing with oil. You know, there are different grades of crude, and our refineries are geared to do something. The Reliance refinery is more, as I understand, is capable of processing more types of crude than some of the other public sector refineries. So yeah, that is a challenge. But either ways, this is too far. I mean, for oil to travel, crude oil to travel from, let's say, west coast of America to India, one is it's a 35-40 day run. I mean, and there is cost. This it's not, you know, it's not the same price that you will pay when it's coming from Middle East, which is really less than a week away.
I want to ask you something, that we spoke a lot about rising prices, right? But for the government, there is also concern about increasing inflation then. How do they then balance?
Yeah, I mean, you have to play along. I mean, or rather, you have to sort of manage it as you go along. There's nothing you can do. So at this point, if the problem, I mean, if you start thinking about inflation and saying I won't increase prices, then you're obviously, we are already facing one kind of situation, and which will only get worse. If you increase prices and there is inflation, then you've got to find other ways of bringing down inflation, and that's why you have well-regarded and well-regarded people in the Reserve Bank of India or the Ministry of Finance, whose job it is to think about these things daily. And thankfully, our job is to only ask questions.
Yeah.
But I think, to your point, Pooja, on electric, I mean, I think, see, it's a good point. I mean, obviously, all these deficiencies show up, right? I mean, we want more electric, and now we are faced with a situation where there's not enough electric infrastructure or EV infrastructure. Should we have accelerated? Yes, but that's in hindsight. I mean, things move at a certain pace in this country. I mean, can you change everything? I don't know. I mean, I feel you're better off saying that, okay, here is what the situation is now. Let's say what we can do with it and what can we improve here. So at this point of time, if I want to say, okay, maybe can I give, let's say, can I offer one-off excise duty cuts on or GST cuts on electric vehicles to speed up purchases? You know, I think that would be a good move to immediately this thing. Second is to say, okay, all these startups and oil companies who are working on EV charging infrastructure, can I create more incentives? Can I make it easier for buildings to set up EV charging infrastructure? You know, so a lot of problems in India, I mean, come down to the plumbing of it, not the policy. I think the policy on saying that we should have more electric, we should have more renewables is reasonably okay. The problem is that, yes, if you go and buy an electric, in my building where I live in Mumbai, there is charging infrastructure. But I know others who are fighting with their building societies because they're the only guys who have an electric car in their society to have that charger. And then, of course, the question of distances. If you're traveling for so long, 1.5-2 hours, you do need some alternate. Does your office building have it? yeah, so we've all reached somewhere in that journey, but not enough, I think. But countries also and citizens also innovate. I mean, I don't know if you've been reading countries like Cuba, Pakistan, because they've been facing power situations for so long. They've all set up home-based solar systems, including panels, which of course you have in Bangalore as well. People in Bangalore have been using solar for heating for a long time, right? But increasingly now you're seeing people. And while there have been government schemes and there have not been government schemes, sometimes people see value in a proposition and go for it. Could the government itself have played a better role? Sure. I mean, and maybe it's not just policy. It's about communication. It's saying that, okay, make it cool to have solar in my house, and as I can see in Australia, for example, I mean, there are many examples, but I've seen friends in Australia who it's almost like a competition. I drive a Tesla and I charge it in my house, and I have a solar panel on top of my house, so it's fully free for me. So it's competitive and it's fun. So if you make it that, then maybe more people will do it for the fun of it, rather than my political leader is breathing down my neck and asking me to do it.
No, also my issue is this. Policy is fine, because policy is where you're just saying do a certain thing, right? You'll say that it's easier, especially in a country like India where sunlight is never a problem. It's not like the Arctics. But it's cheaper if you get solar, but that infrastructure costs a lot of money. So could you have done something to give more subsidies to make sure that that process becomes cheaper, right? These are things I think we could have done better. And we tend to not focus on this. This happened in 2003, 2008 when crude oil prices went up. We just stick to these performative measures. Today, we're getting headlines of every minister cutting down from 10 to 2 cars in his convoy. I mean, yes, it helps now, but this is a crisis that's going to come and hit us again and again and again. So where is that forward thinking? I won't even say forward, because it's the present thinking, I'd say.
Yeah, but I think equally for many of these things, it's not a federal thing, right? I mean, now let's say the Prime Minister and the Cabinet and Union Ministers are completely silent on it. I mean, but if you're living in Bangalore or I'm living in Mumbai, these are things that my municipal commissioner should be talking about, or chief minister should be talking about, right? Because these are things which are happening on our roads around us, or or in our premises around us. And if in the context of solar and renewable power. So, I mean, a lot of things we can say government should be doing, and, of course the government should be doing. But sometimes it's about what the local government and how self-aware they are about these things. Because these are, these are issues that have to be solved at our level. It's not about, I mean, like piped gas, which the government has been pushing, because obviously LNG is more easily available, LPG is not. And we're still facing a shortage, and commercial LPG prices have shot up. Because obviously they're trying to adjust at least that price with what's happening in terms of landed costs. So could we be let's say calibrating all of this better in terms of how we manage both the communication of it and the use of it? Sure, but don't expect them to do it. And if it can be done, I think sometimes it is best done at the provincial or the local level, because that's where it mostly matters.
But I don't think state governments are thinking deeply about this at all. I don't know what BJP governments, because we are not living under any here.
Yeah.
But here the government seems to be very ready to just blame the union government if things go wrong, rather than taking measures themselves. There are small things being announced, but I don't think there are big scale meetings. Like, I don't think governments are even discussing heat very seriously. So war seems to be a
far cry.
No, and they're happy to blame the entire LPG crisis on the union government itself, right?
I mean, they are to be blamed to a large extent, because state governments have limited mandate.
But if you're fighting for decentralization,
then
then everybody has to also take responsibility, right?
But see, again, that's how politicians think. This problem is not created by me. Why should I give solutions?
Yeah.
So people
but anyway,
like us
one thing I can tell you, if the government wants to communicate, they should ask Govind, because he has said the most negative things throughout this podcast with a very smiling face, saying prices should go up. There is no other solution. Petrol prices can go up to 166. I may choose not to drive from North Bangalore to wherever. Very calmly, you've told every possible bad news. That's good communication.
Because no, it's. I think it's an acknowledgement of how bad things are. I mean, I don't know. To me, it was pretty clear from week one. I mean, maybe not day one, definitely not. But the moment oil goes above $100 a barrel, I mean, and these are because I'm talking to others who are giving me this gyan, right? I mean, someone told me, it's a fund manager based out of the UK. I was talking to about 6 months ago. So he said, look at yourself. And he says, tell me which aspects of you are not imported. And what he meant was everything that I'm like shirt. So he says, see, look at your watch. It's coming pretty reasonably sure. If not the watch, the parts are coming from outside the country. He said, look at your shirt. Where is it coming from? Where are your buttons coming from? Where are your shoes from? Socks from? And the fiber that goes into making your trousers or whatever. And the fact is that, I mean, we are in a environment where, a lot of what we use, our phones, everything is imported. Everything is dollars. So we are essentially living in a dollar economy. So if we are, then we will get hit when things like this happen, when whether there's a rupee depreciation or whether there's a war. Now, can we fight that and get out of it? Sure. But we also want to grow as an economy, right? Why importing up to 90% of our fuel? Because we want to grow as an economy. We all individually have aspirations, including of driving our own cars. So if we are aspirational, we want to drive cars, we want to have 4 air conditioners in the house, and we, want to travel, we want to go overseas. All of that is going to consume energy, it's going to cost in dollars, or we want to buy things, we're importing $120 billion of stuff from China, so that's a lot by any stretch. And a lot of that stuff, people say, we are importing even Ganeshas from China. Where is the, sanctity left and so on. But I mean, that may be true. But the point is that those Ganeshas are made more efficiently and more cheaply in China. You can take a call and say, okay, no more idols will be imported from China. Fine. But can you stop importing your, your OnePlus phone or Samsung phone? I'm not saying all of Samsung is not coming from China, but parts of it surely are. I mean, we make a lot of noise, and rightfully so, about all the iPhone infrastructure that we've set up outside Chennai, and we are become one of the largest maker of iPhones, or becoming, not become. But the thing is that a lot of components of that are coming from China. The final assembly is happening here, and some parts are coming from here. So whether it's you and me individually, the laptops that are on your table, for example, I mean, they're all coming from China. They're all paid for in dollars. The microphone that you're speaking on, Dhanya, is, I'm pretty sure, coming from somewhere else.
India and China are bye now, so it's fine. Maybe when India and China...
we don't have to give up our laptops?
Yeah, we don't have to give up our laptops as yet, because India and China are in good terms. Great. Yeah, but I stopped watching Turkish serials because we are not...
Of the war?
No, I'm just kidding. But yeah.
But aren't you watching Chinese serials?
I'm now into all kinds of stuff, because that's the only de-stressor after watching Tamil Nadu Assembly, Tamil Nadu people going from this party to that party. Yeah. Thank you very much, Govind. We'll have to go to the recommendations now. Do you have any recommendations for our listeners? A book, podcast? I mean, I would recommend your podcast. But do you have any other recommendations?
So I'm reading a book by a Malaysian author called Tan Tuan Eng. That's Tan, T-A-N, T-W-A-N-G, Tuang, and E-N-G. So he's from Penang, Kuala Lumpur, and he's written a book called The Gift of Rain. And then he's written subsequent books called The Garden of Evening Mists, which won a Man Asian Literary Prize and also shortlisted for Man Booker and so on. So what I'm reading is this book called The Gift of Rain. So it's one of those books which, if you read, you want to go there to that place to experience it. And in this case, Penang in Malaysia. So that's what I'm reading and enjoying. There may be some non-fiction here and there, but I'm sure it'll utterly bore your audience. So
yeah, I'd like to recommend. BBC has a very nice story. David Attenborough turned 100 last week, so it's a nice article about his secret superpower, and I think everybody should read it for this man's tremendous influence in last so many years. It's amazing how he's still doing it. So please do read it if you get the chance.
My recommendation is this column from Seema Chishti, which is from 2022, December. But I think it holds good today as much. Modi government's attempts to replace rights with duties will have damning consequences. That's one. But a non-fiction thing, after all the election coverage, I thought I should read something fiction for a while. I'm attempting to read the Kannada version of Shivram Karan's Marali Mannige, but there is also an English version. I haven't read the English version. It's called The Same Village, The Same Tree. This is he's focused on one coastal village where he's tracing how generations have lived. So I'm trying to brush up my Kannada reading skills with this.
Okay, I have a couple of recommendations. One is this article on Scroll, How Caste but also North-South Divide Affect Child Malnutrition in India. It's written by 3 scholars. I want to also recommend Outliers by, I wanted to recommend a book which I'm not able to figure out the name now. It's a Pakistani version of Little Women. It's a very nice book. It's for children. It's a Pakistani writer who's written Little Women.
So you will watch Turkish serials, you will watch Chinese serials, you will recommend Pakistani books. What is this behavior?
It's an English book. It's not a Pakistani book. It's not in some language. There is an English book. It's a very nice book. I'll figure out the name and I'll put it in the recommendations list. So do check out all our recommendations. It's all there in an Excel sheet or we keep store of all that.
We can't keep pace, so you can always keep digging back into it and reading stuff. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Govind, for joining us here at South Central.
No, thank you so much for having me, and I wish you and the South Central and the News Minute team, more importantly, all the very best and success in everything that you do, and some great cracking stories as always.
It's almost like he's saying, I'm never coming back. Or then he's given this swan song.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. Thank you, Govind, for joining us here at South Central. Thank you to my producers, Jaseem Ali and Megha Mugundan. Production assistant Ajay, Sukanya Shaji and Ria, who are taking care of all the socials. Thank you, Pooja Prasanna, for being back in the studio.
Thank you for having me, Dhanya, in the studio and not sending me off to some horribly hot place again.
Yes, but you remember, you must go and give us a review on all kinds of podcast forums and do contribute to South Central or become a subscriber. Since all the election fervor is now over, we are going back to our factory settings reset button and we'll give you a lot of good stories. Thank you very much.